welcome back. Long time no see. It's your boy. Welcome back to Orthodox Review, the most uneducated educational program here on the internet. Today, I'm your host, the guy with 1.5 thumbs and a pen. And today, we're going to be going over Father Andrew Louth's Introducing Eastern Orthodox Theology, generously donated to the show, like so many books are these days, by a nameless patron who wishes to remain nameless. So anyway, before we get into the book review, I got to do the shilling. Like, share, subscribe, and PayPal's a thing, Patreon's a thing. Patreon gets all sorts of cool stuff when I actually have the time to do it. My apologies there. And a huge thank you to my patrons and everyone that supports the channel through there and PayPal, because thanks to you, I can actually afford groceries. So that's kind of cool. Glory to God for that. This is episode 84, and let's get into it. So, first published in 2013, IntraVarsity Press, which is kind of a publishing arm of like Harvard and Oxford, kind of a conglomerate there. This is some big brain stuff here. The reason I say it's big brain stuff, so this is, I hesitate to call it catechetical, because it's definitely not meant as a catechesis, but more of a primer. So in the intro, he does explain what they mean by Eastern Orthodox and the differences between, Oriental and all that. And they go through, Latin Christianity appearing sometime after the 3rd century. And he does go into a lot of detail to explain the church and what led up to the repercussions of the schism and all that. And that's just the introduction. And then by the time you get into the book proper, over here on page, I think it's 4 or 7. No, page. Oh, okay, I see. Page 1. I had a hard time with this one, folks. I really did. And I'll get into that in a minute. So right away, he kind of approaches with the acknowledgement that the Godhead Father is incomprehensible. Okay, we cannot understand God in that. And of course, he references back to the prayers in that and the usual formula. And that the usual formula of teaching in a linear way through the creed isn't necessarily the best way, because, when we say, okay, I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible, we cannot fathom the Godhead like that. So we start from, as he calls, a place of paradox, a place of unknowing. And then theology begins in, he says, a mysterious togetherness, which I totally dig on, because it really foreshadows, what he's going to wind up saying about the mystagogy of the liturgy later on in the book, which is fantastic. I'm going to say it's a really well-written book. It's just a little too academic for my personal taste. I have a very hard time with stuff that sounds really smart. Uneducated folks. But anyway, so, and I did highlight as example one thing here. He says, but here is where theology begins. According to the Orthodox tradition, at least as I understand it, in a mysterious togetherness mediated by silence. Chattering during the services is not encouraged, even if it is sometimes difficult to prevent. Full of sounds and smells that seem to interpret this silence rather than dissolve it. As far as a big brain way of talking about the beauty and unity of the liturgy, I find that very nice. So let's jump over to page 6. This is a very important thing he stated here, and actually I got into a discussion about study Bibles with someone who was looking into Orthodox study Bible, because we only have the one, and I had mentioned to him that we rely on preaching and the fathers a lot more than study notes. And here he even says the scriptures are not primarily source of reliable, still less infallible information about religious matters. Rather, Christ stands at the center. They bear witness to him. So that kind of jumped out at me. So we're going to come over here to page, I believe it's 14. And I could go on this all day because there really is just a lot in here to note. But I kind of picked these sections out to kind of give you a taste of what you're really in store here for here later on in the book. This is another bit that jumped out at me, and the section of the book, Thinking and Doing, Being and Praying, is mostly just about how we worship and how we pray. And so here he says, perhaps most important of all, aside from the scriptures, are the prayers and songs of the church, which take us into the experience of the sacred mysteries. It seems to me, for instance, that the texts of the songs that we sing at the Feast of the Dormition of the Mother of God take us more closely and assuredly to the meaning of the feast than any dogmatic definition ever could. Take, for instance, the Kontakion for the Dormition. And this is in the British usage, by the way. Neither tomb nor death overpowered the Mother of God, unsleeping in her prayers, unfailing hope in intercession. For as Mother of life, she has been taken over into life by him who dwelt in her ever-virgin womb. Here we learn that the mystery of the Dormition is the mystery of intercession that is, constantly life-giving. For life has overcome death, and in her death we see the barrier between death and life quite transparent. Again, that's a really fancy way of saying we learn much more from our hymns than we can from many other sources. And that's the way it's always been in the Orthodox Church. I mean, that's why we have the Kentucky and Troparion that we do, because it's a way of teaching through liturgizing. So there's another section here that on the doctrine of the Holy Trinity. Again, I could continue rambling on. And so I do have here in my notes, I wrote down that this is not so much a catechetical work as it is an introduction and primer for the deeper study of theology. And I'm going to stand by that one. I would not recommend this book to anyone who is not already Orthodox and has a solid foundation in the faith and in our theology. What's cool, and there's a reason I kind of skipped forward to this page in the Dogma of the Trinity, is because the cool way he starts to break down theology is by first deconstructing everything, bringing it back down to the core of the incarnation and building it out. And so I did highlight a couple things here that I thought were worthy of note. Here he says, at no point did the Church seek to solve the mystery of the Trinity. That was an accusation often made, whether justly or not, against the heretics, the proponents of positions rejected by the Church. And I love this Chalcedonian definition, this term he coins here in relation to Christology, issued in the Ecumenical Council in 451. Definition in English suggests that some precise description on account of something really is. But the big brain words here, etymological origins of the word rather suggest establishing a boundary, in Latin finis. Indeed, the Greek word used by the council, horos, simply means a boundary. And then cutting back down to here, the first technical term to be introduced was the word homoousios, consubstantial. It was affirmed of the Son in the Creed of the Council of Nicaea, the first ecumenical council in 325, that he is homoousios, co-substantial with the Father. And then you get 159 pages of that. So there it is. yeah, if you're Orthodox and you're looking for a deeper examination of our theology, it's not a bad read. Difficult for dumbasses like me, but for normal people, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. It's also worth noting that he is a priest in the Russian church in where's he from again? I think he's in England, but he came out of the French school, from what I understand. I think. Anyway, good stuff. Check it out. Link in the description. Thank you for sticking around to the end. And as always, has become tradition on the show, since she doesn't really like to make an appearance by interrupting anymore. She can usually be found snoozing away in the gloomy light of day. Anyway, there's your spooky cat moment. Love you all very much. Thank you so much for everything. I'm going mad. I need a vacation. But either way, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for another one coming soon. I finally got a new prayer book. Anyway, on behalf of Spooky Cat and myself, thank you so much. Your prayers, please. Don't forget to go to church, say your prayers, and remember God. God bless. Slay.